Have you ever faced someone so rude, so disrespectful, that every part of you wanted to lash out? That's exactly what they want. They feed on your anger, hoping to drag you into their chaos. But here's a truth the Stoics understood well. Power isn't in reacting. It's in mastering yourself. Imagine responding not with rage, but with a few calm, precise words that cut through their arrogance like a blade of reason. No shouting, no losing control, just a response so composed, so unexpected, that it leaves them speechless, and you in complete command. In this video, I'll share Stoic-inspired comebacks that instantly shut down rudeness, not with aggression, but with wisdom. Say these, and you'll never feel disrespected again. Now, let's get into it. 1. You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it. One of the greatest freedoms in life is the ability to choose what deserves your attention. Rude, arrogant, and judgmental people want nothing more than to pull you into their world of negativity. They don't criticize because they want to help, nor because they believe they're right. They do it to control the conversation, to feel superior, to make their opinions seem like the final word. But when you refuse to engage, when you simply shrug and say, "You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it," you take all their power away. I learned this the hard way. Years ago, when I was starting a passion project that meant everything to me, I shared it with a friend. Let's call him David. I had spent weeks working on it, sacrificing sleep, pushing through obstacles. When I told him about it, expecting even a shred of encouragement, he just smirked and said, "That's a waste of time. You really think anyone's going to care?" The old me would have argued, laid out all the reasons why my project had potential, why I believed in it. But then I asked myself, why am I explaining myself to someone who has never built anything in his life? So instead, I just smiled and said, "You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it." Then I changed the subject. And that was it. He had nothing left to say. He had expected me to defend myself, to fight for his approval. But by dismissing him entirely, I made it clear his opinion had no impact on me. And deep down, I know he felt it. This response is powerful because it denies people the reaction they crave. They expect you to defend yourself, to seek their validation, to let their words shake your confidence. But when you show them that their opinion is just that, an opinion, not a fact, they're left powerless. Nothing frustrates an egotistical person more than being ignored. Rude people want control, and the easiest way to take that control away is through indifference. Engaging in an argument gives them exactly what they want: your attention, your energy, your time. But ignoring them forces them to sit with their own words. It makes them question whether they even mattered to begin with. That moment of silence, where they wait for your reaction and get nothing, that's when they realize they've lost. I've used this response countless times since that day with David. When someone mocks your career path, doubting your dreams, instead of justifying yourself, you smile and say, "You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it." When a toxic family member insists they know what's best for your life, you refuse to explain and just move forward. When a coworker belittles your ideas to make themselves feel important, you let their words drift away like background noise. A lion does not lose sleep over the opinions of sheep, and neither should you. The next time someone rudely tells you what they think about your life, don't argue, don't defend yourself. Just smile, say the words, and carry on. Because at the end of the day, your life belongs to you, and their opinions are nothing more than noise in the wind. True confidence isn't found in proving others wrong. It's found in not needing to. 2. If I had $1 for every smart thing you said, I'd be broke. Some comebacks don't need to be loud to be devastating. This one is simple, almost playful, yet it cuts deep. On the surface, it sounds like a joke, but underneath, it delivers a brutal truth. You talk a lot, but you never say anything of value. Rude people often thrive on noise. They interrupt, mock, and belittle others, not because they are wise, but because they crave attention. Their words aren't meant to enlighten, they're meant to dominate. And the best way to handle them, expose their emptiness. I once had a classmate, let's call him John. John wasn't particularly smart, funny, or accomplished, but he had one skill: making others feel small. His strategy: talk louder than everyone else, throw out sarcastic insults, and act like the smartest guy in the room. One day, during a group conversation, I was explaining something simple. John, in his usual smug tone, interrupted, "Oh yeah, because you're such a genius, right?" Everyone laughed, not because he was witty, but because he was loud and confident. At that moment, I had two choices: let him get away with it or shut him down. So I smiled and said, "John, if I had $1 for every smart thing you said, I'd be broke." Silence. One guy choked on his drink. Someone else muttered, "Oh, damn." And John? He sat there shifting in his seat, searching for a comeback, but there was nothing left to say. That was the moment I realized. Loud people aren't always smart people, and if you call them out the right way, they crumble. This comeback is powerful because it flips their own game against them. You're not directly calling them dumb, but you're making it clear they've never contributed anything valuable. And the beauty of this line, it leaves them with no escape. If they get mad, they look defensive. If they try to argue, they prove your point. If they stay silent, they admit defeat. Either way, you win. So, when should you use this? When someone constantly interrupts you with sarcastic insults. If they keep trying to belittle you, shut them down with this line. When a coworker pretends to be superior but never contributes anything meaningful. Some people love to criticize, yet offer nothing of substance. This response reminds them of that. When a so-called friend mocks you but never says anything insightful themselves. Some people exist just to take jabs at others. Time to put them in their place. Here's the reality. People who love to mock others usually have nothing valuable to offer themselves. They hide behind sarcasm, thinking it makes them look sharp, when in reality, it just masks their insecurity. The best way to handle them? Reveal the truth. So the next time someone tries to act like the smartest person in the room, without ever saying anything meaningful, just smile and say, "If I had $1 for every smart thing you said, I'd be broke." Then watch them struggle to come up with a response. 3. I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect. This isn't just a comeback, it's a statement of power. It sends a clear message. I see exactly what you're doing, and I refuse to engage. Because let's be honest, some people aren't looking for a discussion. They don't want an exchange of ideas, a debate, or even a resolution. They just want to stir the pot, belittle others, and feed their own ego. These are the people who never listen, only wait for their turn to talk. They twist even the smallest disagreements into personal attacks. You could say, "I prefer tea over coffee," and somehow they'd take it as an insult. They act like being rude is a personality trait. They love to say, "I'm just brutally honest," when, in reality, they're just brutal. So why waste energy? Why argue with someone who doesn't respect you in the first place? I learned this the hard way. A while back, I had a co-worker, let's call him Mark. Mark didn't just enjoy arguing, he lived for it. He didn't simply disagree, he had to make people feel small while doing it. He talked over others in meetings, dismissed ideas without offering his own, and threw in passive-aggressive insults whenever he could. One day, during a team discussion, I shared a simple idea. Nothing groundbreaking, just a small improvement to our workflow. Before I could even finish, Mark rolled his eyes and said, "Oh, because you're such an expert, right?" His tone was condescending, dismissive, designed to make me feel inferior. A few years ago, I might have taken the bait. I would have explained myself, defended my idea, maybe even snapped back. But that day I wasn't playing his game. Instead, I leaned back, met his gaze, and calmly said, "I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect." Then I went silent. The room was dead quiet. Everyone waited for Mark to respond, but he had nothing. If he kept going, he'd prove me right. If he backpedaled, he'd look weak. He sat there, fidgeting, searching for a comeback that never came. The best part? After that moment, he never tried pulling that nonsense with me again. This line is powerful because it calls out their behavior without engaging in it. You're not insulting them, you're describing them, and that's far more painful. It removes their control. People like this thrive on reactions. When you don't give them one, they lose their grip. So when should you use this? When someone keeps trying to start a fight with you, don't fuel their negativity, starve it. When a co-worker or boss talks down to you, this makes it clear you won't tolerate disrespect. When a friend or family member belittles you, some people think being close gives them a free pass. It doesn't. When a stranger tries to provoke you, not every battle is worth fighting. Some people aren't even worth acknowledging. Here's the truth. Some people argue not to solve anything, but just to win. They enjoy seeing others lose control. It gives them a twisted sense of power. The best response? No response. Instead, drop this line. I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect. Then walk away. Because the moment they realize they don't have control over you, they've already lost. 4. Your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life. This isn't just a comeback, it's a wake-up call. Rude, arrogant, and dismissive people walk around thinking they're winning. They mistake condescension for confidence, thinking belittling others makes them powerful. But here's the truth. That attitude is a one-way ticket to nowhere. People respect strength, not arrogance. No boss promotes someone who can't work with others. No one builds meaningful relationships with someone who constantly belittles people. And no truly successful person ever got ahead by running their mouth instead of their mind. So when you say, your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life, you're not just shutting them down. You're forcing them to confront their own downfall. I once worked with a guy like this. Let's call him Jake. Jake didn't just have an ego. He had an entire empire built on making others feel small. If you made a mistake, he'd roll his eyes instead of helping. If you had an idea, he'd shut it down before even listening. He thought that by stepping on others, he was elevating himself. One day, in a meeting, he snapped at a co-worker. Maybe if you actually knew what you were talking about, we wouldn't be wasting time. The room went silent. People looked uncomfortable, but no one spoke up, because that's what people like Jake count on. They rely on others staying silent. But I wasn't about to let it slide. I looked at him calmly and said, "Your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life." At first he smirked, trying to brush it off, but as the meeting continued, I noticed something. He wasn't as confident anymore. He wasn't laughing. For the first time, he actually looked uncomfortable. Why? Because deep down, he knew I was right. And here's the best part. A few months later, promotions were announced. And guess who got passed over? Jake. Because no matter how skilled you are, if people can't stand working with you, you're going nowhere. This line is powerful because it forces them to think long-term. Right now, they might feel untouchable. But where is that attitude leading them? Nowhere. It's not an insult, it's a fact. And facts hurt more than insults ever could. Use this line when a coworker is rude and condescending. Remind them that their behavior will cost them. A stranger acts disrespectfully. Some people need to hear this in public. A family member constantly puts others down. Being family doesn't give them a free pass. A friend has a toxic attitude. If they're always negative and dismissive, it's time for some truth. Some people walk through life thinking rudeness makes them powerful. But life has a way of humbling those who believe they're above everyone else. So next time someone disrespects you, just say, "Your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life." Then watch as they realize, maybe, just maybe, they're the real problem. 5. This conversation was over before it even started. This isn't just a comeback, it's a checkmate. A response so final, so absolute, that it doesn't just shut down an argument, it erases it entirely. It sends a clear message. You thought you were about to engage in a battle, but I'm not even stepping onto the battlefield. Rude people thrive on conflict. They push buttons, hoping to drag you into an argument, because that's where they feel powerful. But what happens when you refuse to engage? When you make it clear that their words hold zero weight, they lose all control. By saying, "This conversation was over before it even started," you do something incredibly powerful. You strip them of their influence. You make them feel unimportant. You show them they don't dictate your emotions. And trust me, nothing frustrates an arrogant person more than realizing they never had power over you to begin with. I remember a time when I used this, and it worked instantly. A few years ago, I had a co-worker. Let's call him Alex. Alex wasn't just negative. He was the kind of person who found something to criticize in everything. Your ideas, your work, even the way you spoke. He had something to say about it. And the worst part, he loved doing it in front of others. One day, in a meeting, I suggested a new approach for a project. Before I could even finish, Alex smirked and said, "Yeah," or "We could just do it the right way instead." I could feel the tension in the room. He wanted me to react, to defend myself, to argue. Instead, I looked at him calmly and said, "This conversation was over before it even started." Then, without another word, I turned back to my work. Silence. Alex looked completely caught off guard. He tried to save face, but you could see it. He was rattled. He expected a fight, but instead, I dismissed him like he didn't even exist. And from that day forward, he never tried that nonsense with me again. This line is powerful because it does three things. It denies them the satisfaction of an argument. They want to fight, but you refuse to step into the ring. It instantly puts them beneath you. You're telling them their words are so insignificant, they don't even deserve a response. It preserves your energy. Engaging with rude people drains you. This shuts it down before it even begins. Use this line when someone is trying to bait you into an argument. You don't owe them your energy. A coworker, boss, or acquaintance is being passive-aggressive. Shut it down before it escalates. A friend or family member is being unnecessarily rude. You don't have to entertain negativity. A stranger insults you for no reason. Some people just want attention. Don't give it to them. Not every fight is worth fighting. Not every insult deserves a response. Rude people win when they steal your energy, but they lose when you show them how little they matter. So next time someone tries to pull you into a pointless argument, just say, "This conversation was over before it even started." Then walk away, while they sit there, stunned, realizing they lost before they even began. 6. Thanks for your input. I'll be sure to forget it immediately. Rude people seek dominance, not truth. Their words are not meant to enlighten, but to provoke, to draw you into a battle where they feel superior. They test your patience, hoping you'll react and validate their importance. But when you respond with, "Thanks for your input, I'll be sure to forget it immediately," you strip them of their illusion of control. You show them their words carry no weight, that their attempt to disrupt your peace was meaningless. A Stoic knows that most insults are empty, mere echoes of another person's own frustrations. When someone speaks with disrespect, they are revealing more about themselves than about you. Their criticism is rarely built on wisdom. It is simply noise, spoken not to guide, but to wound. But wounds only form when you allow the words to pierce you. When you refuse to let them in, they disappear into nothingness. I remember working with someone who loved to cut others down. Let's call him Daniel. He wasn't interested in ideas, only in making sure others felt inferior to him. During a meeting, I shared a simple proposal. Before I could even finish, Daniel smirked and said, "That's interesting, but let's leave the serious suggestions to the experts." He expected me to get defensive, to argue, to seek his approval. Instead, I looked at him calmly and replied, "Thanks for your input. I'll be sure to forget it immediately." Then I turned back to my work. The room fell silent. Daniel sat there, caught off guard, waiting for a reaction that never came. In that moment, he realized something powerful. He had spoken, but his words had changed nothing. His attempt to throw me off balance had failed because I had refused to grant him any influence over my mind. And from that day forward, he never tried that with me again. This response is effective in any situation. When a family member mocks your ambitions, don't explain yourself. Just smile and say, "I appreciate the comment. It's already erased from my mind." When a stranger throws an insult your way, don't meet them with anger. Just shrug and say, "Oh wow, you must have really thought that one would land. Thanks for the input. I'll forget it in about 3 seconds." The more indifferent you sound, the more powerful your response becomes. A Stoic does not waste energy battling meaningless words. To argue with someone who seeks only to provoke is to lower yourself to their level. And that is the greatest mistake you can make. Instead, remain unmoved. Let their words pass like the wind, leaving no trace behind. When you make it clear that their insults hold no power over you, they have already lost. 7. You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself. Some people are addicted to drama. They don't seek wisdom, only conflict. It's as if they wake up every morning, look in the mirror and think, "How can I embarrass myself today?" They thrive on making noise, believing that volume equals dominance. But when you hit them with, "You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself," you turn the mirror back on them. Suddenly, they're forced to consider a question they never expected. Am I actually making a fool of myself? Even if their ego won't let them admit it, the thought lingers. Rude people expect you to get defensive, to argue, to validate their behavior by engaging. But this response does the opposite. It forces them to pause. It shifts the spotlight onto them, not in the way they wanted, but in a way that exposes their behavior for what it truly is. And if others are watching, the effect is even stronger. The crowd, once indifferent, now sees the situation clearly. One person is acting like a fool, and it's not you. I once had a co-worker, let's call him Brandon, who loved interrupting people in meetings, rolling his eyes at every idea that wasn't his. One day during a discussion, I was laying out a solution to a problem when Brandon, smirking, cut in. "Oh, because you're the expert now." Normally, people might flinch, backtrack, or try to explain themselves. But I simply looked at him, smiled slightly and said, "You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself." The room went quiet. Brandon shifted in his chair, waiting for me to react further, but I'd already moved on. He could either let it go or try to defend himself. Both options only made him look worse, and from that moment, he never pulled that act with me again. This response works anywhere. A so-called friend throws a passive-aggressive insult your way? Just chuckle and say, "You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself." A stranger tries to provoke you in public? Shrug and say, "Keep up the hard work." Then walk away. Online trolls try to drag you into their nonsense. Hit them with this and log off, leaving them to stew in their own foolishness. The truth is, most rude people don't think they're being ridiculous. They think they're being clever. They assume they're in control, dominating the conversation. But the moment you call them out with detached amusement, you force them to see themselves as they really are. And that's real power. At the end of the day, dealing with rude people isn't about out-insulting them. It's about outclassing them. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to argue. You don't even need to take them seriously. Because here's the truth. Disrespect only holds power when you allow it to. When you stay calm, respond with precision, and walk away as if their words carried no weight, that's when they feel the sting. That's when they realize their attempts to bring you down were nothing more than wasted energy. And in that moment, they don't just lose the argument, they lose control. The next time someone disrespects you, remember, true strength isn't in proving them wrong, but in showing them they were never relevant to begin with. Master your emotions, choose your words wisely, and let your indifference be the loudest response. That's how you win, without ever needing to fight. If this video gave you a new perspective, hit that like button. Share your thoughts below. What's your go-to response to rudeness? And if you're on a journey of self-mastery, subscribe for more insights on stoicism, power, and navigating life with unshakable wisdom. Stay strong, stay composed, and I'll see you in the next one.